All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back for another video. We got a Michael Jordan video. We got why did two teams pass up on drafting the GOAT? We all know Jordan was selected number three. I forgot who was picked number one and number two. I think it was dang, who was number one? I can't remember. I don't even feel like looking up right now, but they're probably gonna explain who got picked number one, number two. Of course, gonna get into the reason why they didn't pick Jordan. Jordan was the GOAT. I guess at that time they didn't realize how good he was gonna be, but eventually he was end up being the GOAT of all time. But enough talking, let's get right to the video. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button, all the good stuff, and let's get into the video. Get my headphones ready. Here we go.
The Chicago Bulls pick Michael Jordan of the University of North Carolina.
Can you believe that not just one,
That's
but
right.
two
Hakeem
players were
Olajuwon,
drafted
pick number
before
one,
the
Sam
GOAT
Bowie number two.
himself, Michael Jordan? When you think of Michael Jordan, you often don't think about the fact
And the thing, Sam Bowie, I don't even think he lasted like 5 seasons in NBA. Dude was horrible. Like horrible. But enough talking about Sam Bowie. We're talking about Michael Jordan here.
that he was drafted third overall coming into the league. As a matter of fact, he could have slipped down a lot further if it weren't for some positive swings. I know that I always think of those championships and the success, but it's just so hard to imagine two teams sitting back and thinking that there were players better than this guy even back then.
Right.
So
That's crazy.
in today's video, we're going to be looking at those two players drafted before him and see why they even did what they did. Make sure you stick around until the end of the video to find out why Chicago drafted Jordan when it was their turn to pick. The number
Because they
one
beat his
overall pick in the Michael Jordan draft was Hakeem Olajuwon. He was selected by the Houston Rockets, and let's be honest here, it's not like he was a bust or anything.
No, he was not.
Admittedly, he wasn't the player that Jordan turned out to be, but really he was closer than many people might admit. Hakeem
Fine,
the
he was
Dream
on top
had a
of him.
pretty insane NBA career. He played 18 long seasons in the
18.
NBA and only switched teams once in his career. That switch didn't even matter much as he played 18 straight seasons with the Rockets before flipping over to the Toronto Raptors in his final year in the NBA before retiring. Think of it like when
Oh, yeah,
Michael
forgot about
Jordan
that.
went over to play with the Washington Wizards, or if Kobe Bryant had randomly decided to play for the Cleveland Cavaliers before retiring. Olajuwon's career averages were 21.8 points, 11.1 rebounds, and 2.5
Crazy
assists per
stats.
game. He was a 51% career shooter from the floor, but a
Ooh.
horrific 20.2% shooter from behind the arc. Of course, nobody, especially big men, was really shooting the three ball consistently back then,
Nah,
as
not for
it really
real.
wasn't much of a hot spot, unlike the danger zone that it's considered nowadays. Olajuwon also shot 71% from the charity stripe,
That's
not
pretty
bad
good for a
a
big man.
7-footer
Yeah.
that primarily uses his touch around the rim. Hakeem was relatively available the majority of the time for Houston too. He played in all 82 games 3 times throughout his career.
That's good
and
for a
the
big
least
man.
number of games he played in just one season
Hey.
was in his 14th year in the league when he was only out there for 47 of the games. Moving on
That
now to the
footwork,
good
crazy.
stuff, the big time accolades. Hakeem won an NBA championship for the very first time at the end of the 1994 season with the Rockets. It was a glorious moment for him and the rest of the team.
Yeah, it
They
took him a while to
clearly
get it, but he
loved the
got one
feeling
with
so
two.
much that they repeated during the 1995 season and won a second championship. Now, in both of those championship runs, Hakeem won the Finals
Oh, that's when they
MVP
got
award pretty darn
Clyde
easily.
Drexler.
Alongside his incredible championships, he made it onto 12 All-Star teams and 12 All-NBA teams. He was a 3-time block champion, a 9-time member of the All-Defensive team, and won an MVP award during the 1993 season.
I
And
didn't
that's
know
not
that.
even all of the
Guess I forgot
accolades
about
that he's
that.
accomplished either. He was named to the All-Rookie team during his first year in the league, and eventually went on to
Of
lead
course.
the league in total
Hey.
rebounds for not 1, but 2 seasons. Lastly, he was a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year winner for his phenomenal rim protection and shot blocking ability. And speaking
Ooh.
of shot blocking, he's the only player in
That's
league
crazy.
history to average at least 2 blocks and 2 steals per game in 4 separate seasons.
Damn.
No other player in the history of the NBA has ever done that more than once in their careers. However, it should be mentioned that some people strongly believe that Hakeem's 2 championships wouldn't have ever happened if it weren't for Jordan having an early retirement. If If you've ever watched
Yeah,
the
I
Bulls'
forgot
recent
about that too.
documentary or
Damn.
kept up on Jordan's career, you would know that he chose to retire early and then return to the game a couple years later.
Yeah.
During that brief intermission from the sport that he was dominating in, Hakeem led his team to 2 championships. I tell you what, it would have been interesting to get to watch Hakeem go head-to-head against Michael Jordan in those years.
That would have been a
Sadly,
great,
the timelines were
great
always just
matchup.
a little bit off. Now, personally, I still believe that those 2 years were just destined for the Rockets with or without Jordan around to stop them. But anyways, enough of my opinion. Now, let's figure out why the Rockets felt so strongly about Hakeem and why they didn't jump the gun and select Jordan instead.
And they needed a big
Hakeem
man.
had just come off a season with the University of Houston and had taken the school to a level that they'd never been in their history up to that point. He was legendary for the school and for college as well. Plus, it made perfect sense for him to stick around in the Houston area after how influential he was already becoming. Not to mention the fact that the
He was a
Rockets
beast.
desperately needed a big man to kind of fill their rebuilding roster out of
Exactly.
the time.
That's what they needed.
Before Hakeem, Houston didn't have anybody to step into the post and get a bucket or stay in the paint to protect the rim. So the pick just seemed too perfect for them.
Yeah,
so
that made a
they
lot
ended
of
up pulling
sense.
the trigger on him without any second thought. The second pick in this draft was Sam Bowie.
Sam. Oh,
Man, I tell
Bowie.
you what,
Okay, I was
this
saying
pick
his
really
name wrong.
makes you feel for the Portland
Sam
Trailblazers
Bowie.
fans. The organization was so excited
Sam
when they
Bowie
found
sounds
out
better.
that Sam Bowie fell to them at the number 2 spot, and Bowie was really hyped up, and many expected him to be really good for the team. However, that never really panned out, like, at all. He only played 10 seasons in the league, and his
10
only
seasons,
accolade throughout his
okay.
entire career was that he made it onto the all-rookie team. To be fair, he had a strong first season, but quickly fell off the charts after that. He played 72 games in that
Injuries.
rookie year, but then he only played 38 in his second season. Not to mention the fact that a lot of his numbers dipped during that time. By the time he was into his third year, he played just 5 games before
Damn.
missing the entirety of the season. He also missed every single game in the year after that, meaning outside of his rookie year, he played in just 43 games in 3 full seasons.
That's crazy.
He came back and played just 20 games the next season before finally returning to the upper 60s and 70s for the next 5 seasons. The last 2 years of his career were pretty uneventful, and not surprisingly, he played in just a total of 92 games in those 2 seasons. Injuries just kept on coming for Bowie, which is pretty much the reason he
I think
was
he broke his
never
leg.
really
Oh,
able
yeah,
to
he broke his
reach his
leg.
potential. Every time
That's
his minutes increased, so did his
that's
injuries.
crazy.
Bowie played out the 4 years of his rookie contract before not getting re-signed by the Trailblazers. Then he went over to the New Jersey Nets for 4 seasons to try and stop the bleeding. Once again, though, he really didn't make much of a name for himself and was forced to take his talents to the Los Angeles Lakers for those final 2 years of his career. His career averages were 10.9 points, 7.5
Well, that's still
rebounds,
kinda
and
decent, I
2.1
guess.
assists per game. He shot
Yeah.
just 45% from the floor and a below average 30% from behind the arc. Although, hey, he shot 75% from the free throw line, so there were some positives to take away from this experiment.
Yeah.
He's not in the NBA Hall of Fame, and he certainly doesn't have nearly the accolades or talent that both Hakeem and Jordan had throughout their careers.
Heck no.
Let's just go ahead and call it, guys. This pick was an all-around failure for the Blazers organization.
It
But
kind
why
of
did they
was.
even
Could have
draft
been
him
better.
at all? We'll get to that in just a second, but make sure you stick around until the end of the video to find out why the Bulls ended up actually drafting Jordan. So Portland had traded with the Indiana Pacers in order to acquire this selection in the draft, and they already had Clyde Drexler on their roster. Clyde was a really solid young player at the time, and they felt incredibly confident with where they stood at that position because of it. So that's why they shied away from drafting Jordan, because they played the same spot on the court.
Oh,
so they
okay,
opted to
that-
take
that's
the big
right, that's
man
right.
they desperately needed that year. They chose against taking the best player available and instead selected based on team needs, which is always a danger when drafting that high in the pecking order. And the situation just gets worse though. Bowie recently admitted while recording a documentary labeled Going Big that he actually lied to the Blazers organization so that he could be drafted higher.
Oh, wow.
He was asked about that choice and said, "I can still remember them taking a little mallet, and when they would hit me on my left tibia and I don't feel anything, I would tell them. But deep down inside, it was hurting. If what I did was lying and what I did was wrong, at the end of the day, when you
Man,
have loved
that's-
ones that have some needs, I did what any of us would have done."
That's crazy.
Portland admittedly knew about the long injury history of Bowie when they drafted him, but they probably didn't know that he was already feeling a few injuries during the offseason ahead of the draft.
That's
Maybe if he opened up about it, it would have pushed the team to go ahead and select a different player.
yeah.
Though, that's a little out of the cards now, I'd say. And then finally, at the number 3 overall draft spot, the Chicago Bulls selected Michael Jordan. And the rest is history, right?
Yeah.
Funny enough, they didn't even want to draft him, though. See, Jordan was entering the league with expectations that he would be a good, if not great, all-around team player for any team wanting to win an NBA championship. During the draft, Chicago saw both Hakeem and Bowie slide off the board. They seriously wanted a big man to fill their massive need at the center position, but they didn't have any other options left on the draft board to take that highly. So, after a long
Must not
time
have been a
just
deep
considering
draft.
all their options, Chicago chose to just settle down and take the best player available, which happened to be Michael Jordan. So,
Of
what
course.
ended up being funny about this whole situation was that Jordan didn't even show up to the draft. When his name was
What?
called, he was out in Bloomington, Indiana, just practicing and getting ready for a shot to play for the Team USA Olympics roster. It's kind of funny how he would rather go to work and improve on his game instead of showing up to the spectacle it is the NBA draft.
So he
It's
wasn't
still
even at the
really
draft. That's
wild to
crazy.
think about how the Blazers and the Rockets both passed up on Jordan, but hey, at least the Rockets can say that their selection helped them win 2 championships
Yeah.
and became one of their best players in franchise history. The Bowie selection, on the other hand, well, that's quite literally only brought hecklers and disappointment when the team thinks about that decision. Who knows what would have actually happened if just 1 or 2 coaches on the staff thought differently about these dudes. Could have shaken up the entirety of the league,
Yeah.
and nothing would have happened the way it did now. And with that, we officially wrap up today's video about the 2 players who were drafted ahead of the legendary Michael Jordan. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure.
Alright, that's it for the video. I guess it makes a lot of sense why either one of those teams selected Michael Jordan. Because Houston needed a center. Portland already had a shooting guard, so why not pass up on Jordan and get a big man when you need it? But Portland could have used Jordan, but not, I don't know. He's played the same position as Clyde Drexler, so it really wouldn't have made no sense at all. But yeah, it is what it is. Too late. It's in the past. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button, all the good stuff. And any more reactions, need me to react to, more videos, let me know. I'm out. Peace.